Hey, welcome, folks. The following is something that was put on my website back in 2017, and it's ironic because it's some of the things that we're dealing with right now. Please watch and let me know what you think. Also, if you don't mind, share this out with somebody else. I would really appreciate it. You take care, and here we go. Hello and welcome to the Felicia Lockhart Show. And this is the show airing for August the 16th, 2017. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Well, there has been some tumultuous things going on in the United States just this past weekend. We had a terrible tragedy that took place in the South here where it looks to me as if some white supremacists and some other protesters got into some things and we lost human life. There was a poor woman who met her demise at this particular function. Well, now what we are doing is we are raising the question here in the United States as to whether or not we should remove all of the Confederate monuments here in the United States. And, I want to say this. I have dual feelings about this. I can totally understand 100% of the way why people would feel as if those monuments stand for something that is totally opposite of what we are or what we strive to be here in America. Let's just be honest. Our history, as it relates to the past 400 years, I guess 400 years, has not been a good one. You can look at it all the way back from the natives here in the United States, how they were pushed off of their land and recessed into small little bitty almost colonies, if you will, being there on reservations. And then you can also look at the high influx, definitely not as many that went into South America, but definitely look at the amount of slaves that came here to North America. So we have had our past problems. And so I could definitely understand how people would feel as it relates to the monuments and why people would want to remove them. But, as usual, I have to look at the opposite side of the coin, and I've got to pose this question. If we allow the monuments to be destroyed, to be removed, or to be taken down, wouldn't it then be easy for someone else to come on in and say, well, I find it offensive to see, they already started it pretty much with churches and things like that. If you've got a cross, I remember here in Georgia, they had crosses for Memorial Day with flags attached to them and in a very large area here at I believe it was either a city park or it was either a cemetery, but I do remember they had individuals who were very upset about it, and they ended up removing all of the crosses with all of the flags because they felt like it was offensive. But now let's look at something. Let's just play devil's advocate for a second here. What would happen if people just decide they don't agree with the crosses on top of churches? Something to think about, isn't it? What happens if you have, we've already attacked the flag on people's yards. Here in Georgia, there was a woman who was arrested, I believe in 2016, for attacking a flag that was posted on a family's mailbox right outside of their house. This lady was arrested. She just drove by the street, drove by their house and took a bat or took some stick or something like that and just assaulted the heck out of that post office box right in front of their house. So I think that we got to be a little careful when we start removing things, because once you set a precedence for something like removing monuments, like telling people they can't put flags in their front yard because it may offend Muslims or somebody else, and that has been the rhetoric that's been used. Once we start doing that, we are going to be the most sterile, and I use that word very, very loosely because we are far from being sterile here in America. We're not that clean at all, but we will then start to sterilize our entire environment. It'll be just like the worst homeowners association that you've ever seen. You won't be able to put anything on your door. If you're somebody who still wants to celebrate Halloween, you won't be able to put a pumpkin in the window because somebody's going to be upset at that jack-o'-lantern, that it offends them. I remember when I was growing up, if we did not like something on television, well, back then we could just change the channel. We only had a few stations, so we pretty much tried to weather the storm. But for the most part, if we didn't like what somebody was saying, we would just leave them alone. We knew where they were coming from. We agreed to disagree. We respected what their mindset was, and we kept it pushing. Nowadays, it appears that you cannot say anything at all. If you say Merry Christmas, for example, for those folks who celebrate Christmas, you can't say Merry Christmas if you work in an environment where, you're dealing with the public. You can't say anything that relates to that. But the irony is that everybody goes out and spends tons of money on Christmas wrapping. And they spend tons of money for Christmas. So it's funny that the things that bring in the money, we can deal with that, but we just can't say what Christmas is. I think that for everyone who is offended by the Confederate flag, by the Confederate statues, you have a right to feel exactly the way that you feel. But here's a very important fact. The Confederate flag and all of those things have a very negative connotation to them. But they also point to a time in America where we were more barbaric than ever as it relates to human rights, as it relates to civil rights of all people. I think we need to be careful, because if you push all of these things away, you are getting rid of a very important history. Although it may be painful to most, if you take away history and you do not remember it, I believe the old adage that if you don't remember your history, you are destined to repeat it. Please like, share, and subscribe. This is Felicia Lockhart, and this has been the Lockhart Perspective.